Hey, hey, how's the audio? Aloha. I was wondering who would be up in this time zone. Good. Got a new microphone finally. No more AirPods. Yeah, dark is good. I'm doing you a favor. Great. I got a Shure microphone at someone's recommendation on the internet. Am I doing Happy Body still? A little bit. I'm mostly doing yoga these days, though. I think the flexibility gains from yoga are important. We'll just let some people come back, keep coming in. Hello from Vegas. It's late for you. Yeah, it's a late night broadcast for me too. I won't stay that long. I'm pretty tired. I'm a little tired, and honestly, I'm not sure I have much to say. But we'll talk. There's no theme today. I swear to you, I'm out of material. That's part of the reason why I haven't been periscoping that much. Part of the reason I haven't been periscoping is just because I'm a lot more calm and relaxed and happy these days, and so I just don't want to ruin that with Twitter, honestly. It's also why I'm tweeting a lot less. And some of it is also just I just don't have that much to say right now. No wine glass. I have tea, although I fully do advocate drinking wine if you want to. There's nothing wrong with it. Someone once harassed me about drinking wine on a Periscope when I was actually drinking tea. But either is actually fine. Yeah, tweeting does mess up my vibe. It's Molly Dolly just said tweeting messes up your vibe. It does. Twitter is a tough place to hang out. There's a Everyone wants to get outraged about something. Some people want to signal how smart they are and kind of push back on anything you say. A lot of people take things out of context. It's getting to be a very difficult place to hang out. I also had a Twitter mishap. I actually wanted to cut down my Twitter, so I deleted my Twitter app off my phone and my iPad. And what I didn't realize was that Twitter doesn't store the drafts in the cloud. So I literally lost hundreds of tweets, which was a little disheartening. Not that it matters that much. Those were not the best tweets, and those were more kind of notes to self. But I lost a lot of material. Regardless, I mean, I have a ton of things I could say. I just feel like it would be redundant. Um, Book I read recently, I actually went through Skin in the Game recently, Nassim Taleb's book. And I went through it very slowly. It took me the better part of months because that was the kind of book that I really wanted to absorb. So I would read 4 pages at a time and take a lot of notes, which I rarely do. I'm not a note taker, but with Skin in the Game, I took notes because there are a lot of good original concepts in there. And I'll be interviewing Nassim Taleb at BlockCon on Thursday, and there will be hopefully a streaming link, but at least a video afterwards. So you're gonna get some good insight there. How many books do I read a month? I don't track the number of books. I don't think it's a relevant metric at all. If you read one amazing book a year that changes your life, then that's all it takes. Books read is just a vanity metric. Number of words read is a vanity metric. Somebody on Twitter, I think it was Ayla Curtis, said I would rather read the 100 top books than read a lot of books, and I think that's right. Skin in the Game. Actually, it's the second time I've sort of read it. I read about halfway through the first time, then I let it sit for a while, then I went through it again, and now I'm sort of reviewing it one more time. So I forget about number of books read. See, reading books is completely a personal experience. It's a single player game, as I've said before. So there's no point in trying to do book reading for other people. In fact, sharing books in that sense is bad. Sharing what books you're reading is bad because it forces you to pretend like you're reading more than you are or you're reading smarter than you are. Um, Yeah, how does one know which are the top 100 books? So that's why you read more than 100 books, because you skim very, very quickly to find the ones that grab you and are important and interesting for you, and then you stick to those and you go really deep. There's exploration and there's exploitation. Sorry, the camera slipped. There's exploration, there's exploitation. So you explore a lot of books until you decide that there's something there to exploit. Um, I want to try this one a little bit differently, um, where I'm going to let people list a bunch of questions. I'm going to read them, pick one that I think is relevant and have something to add to, and then I'm going to ignore the questions after that. So if you could, please try to batch up the questions during these pauses. So let's go ahead and lay out the questions for now. Let's do questions. Yes, reading is a journey to find the great books for you. That's correct. How to get smarter? Just read a lot. Yeah, I always read according to my interest. So, sorry, I have this. I have the phone precariously balanced. The problem is this new mic only mounts on the bottom, not on the top, so it puts the phone in a precarious position. But I'll just hold it. Um, how do you manage to apply discipline on yourself rather than just do what you like? You know, discipline is really overrated. Discipline is just you fighting with yourself to do something you don't want to do. So I would say it's more important to find something that you want to do and that can be productive, as opposed to trying to discipline yourself. Self-discipline is it's tough. You won't sustain it. Tiger Woods didn't become a great golfer through self-discipline. Now, there's some things that, like I'm not a very athletic person, so it's hard for me to do workouts on a regular basis that I enjoy. It took me a long time to find one that I did enjoy. And now I like yoga because it's also extremely meditative, and it's very relaxing. And it's kind of a trip to build up your flexibility. It makes you feel younger. So I've gotten into yoga. So it's the first time I would say I found some athletic activity that I like to do for fun. Um, well, a lot of questions, and they're all over the place. Okay, so I don't know any better than you for most of these things. It's just an opinion. Like what I like to eat and how I like to live is not necessarily relevant to you. But I'm gonna try and find something here we can talk about. What is consciousness? All of us. What the thing you're experiencing right now. If you don't know what consciousness is, I can't tell you. It's an experiential thing. Um, what has been top of mind lately? I've built a serious meditation practice, and I hesitate to talk about it because I don't, meditation has also turned into this sort of social game. So let me talk about meditation for a bit. Let's stop the questions for a moment because it's just confusing everybody. So please hold the questions. I'm not going to read them for a while. I'm going to talk about meditation. Um, Meditation is a difficult topic because people use it to grandstand. They use it to show off, like, "Oh, I'm meditating. How long have you been meditating? How good do you feel? What kind of meditation do you do?" "Well, my meditation is better than yours." So it turns into a competition, which is complete nonsense because meditation is the ultimate single player activity. Please hold the questions for now. Meditation is the ultimate single player activity. And it's not something you do for other people, you do it for yourself. And you don't do it because you're trying to accomplish or achieve something, you do it because you enjoy it. And when you do it because you enjoy it, then ironically you get the benefits out of it. The thing that I learned about meditation recently is, at least from me, 20 minutes doesn't work. We tell people go meditate for 20 minutes as a way of kind of easing them into it. The reality is you just have a lot more junk in your head to clear out than you can clear out in 20 minutes a day. And so for me, it took a sustained amount of time where for a month straight, almost 2 months really, I meditated for an hour or more per day. And then only after that was my mind clear enough that I started enjoying the benefits. And the benefits are little indescribable, but the closest analogies I can give is it just makes me calmer, happier. My breath is slower. I almost feel like my heart rate is slower. It also gives me all kinds of insights and helps me solve problems that normally I would just ignore and keep sweeping under the rug, and a really giant pile builds up underneath that rug. But once you do clear your mind through meditation or get it a lot clearer, it's just really enjoyable. I sit down now and close my eyes for the sheer pleasure of it, and that's a wonderful place to be. But it takes work to get there. But I've been meditating on and off for 8 years and mostly failing, and it only started working well for me recently once I started doing these hour-long meditations. So I would say don't give up. Find the one that works for you. Um, I don't think it's about forcibly clearing your mind. The reason when you sit down, you close your eyes, that you have these uncontrollable thoughts is mostly because you have unresolved issues. These are all things you need to sort through. These are all things that you need to think about that you're not thinking about. So it's okay if you think about them because you're going to sort them through. And it may take days, weeks, months, years to sort through all of them. But when you do, the benefit is a clear mind. I would recommend it right at the beginning of the day. Transcendental meditation never worked for me. Um, all the Kundalini stuff, all the fancy stuff you don't need. The Buddha supposedly became enlightened just by concentrating on his breath. So if it was good enough for the Buddha, it's probably good enough for you. And the system that I tried is basically just sitting down for 1 hour every morning. 1 hour is the minimum. Less than that, I wouldn't bother. And just accepting and surrendering whatever happens. You basically just, if your mind runs, let your mind run. Just accept whatever it's going to do. Don't put any effort into it, and don't put any effort against it. Don't resist it, and don't push it either. I am not a world-class meditator, but all I can tell you is that I've now managed to get it to the level where I don't think I'll ever stop, and it's made my life a lot better. Someone asked about sleepiness. Yeah, the reason to do it in the morning is so you don't fall asleep. So you can lean your back against something, get comfortable, and still not fall asleep. Because otherwise, if you do it in the evening, you either have to be incredibly flexible and be able to sit up straight without leaning your back, or you will fall asleep. Having a clear mind is wonderful. When your mind is clear, what remains is peace. And if you're in a peaceful state and you're doing something, it almost turns into happiness. It's like free happiness without drugs, without alcohol, without even sort of external stimulation. Okay, now let's open up to more questions. In other words, I'll read questions. I know people have been asking, but I try not to read when I'm talking. Do I lay in a corpse pose? No, because I would fall asleep. And I think for me, it works better when you're sitting up straight. They do say in meditation you want your back straight, and there's something to that. Someone asked, what are your fears? And do you think about life after death? Those are highly related. So it's late at night, so let's get philosophical. Um, I think everyone's fear ultimately, all fears are children of the fear of death. The fear of death is the big one. And it's a good question to ask. Why do we fear death? What are we so afraid of? After all, every night when you go into a deep sleep, you're essentially dead. You don't remember anything from the deep sleep. You might as well be dead during that period of time. Before you were born, it was like being dead. If you've ever been knocked unconscious, either through general anesthesia or just some kind of trauma, you were essentially gone from this world. So it's not the experience of death that I think we fear because there's no one there to experience it. There's not even the experience of necessarily of loss because you don't experience anything when you're dead. But I think what we're really afraid of when we die or when we think we're going to die is we're sorry. I'm gonna block somebody here. All right. What we're afraid of when we think we're going to die is we're actually asking for more time. We're basically saying, no, 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 wait, I'm not ready to go yet. And why are we saying we're not ready to go yet? So I think it's more that we feel like we haven't really been living. We've been putting off our life. If you were living your ideal life and if you were going through joy or happiness or bliss all the time, if your life was fulfilling moment to moment, then I don't think you would really fear death. First is you'd be too busy to fear death. You'd be too busy living. And second is I don't think you would have regrets. Life is actually really long. It's really, really long. It's just that we waste it. We fritter it away. We fritter it away because we're doing things that we think are low value, or we're mortgaging the present to try, for some imagined future. But I think if you're truly living your life on your terms the way you want it, and you're happy, you will find that life is long and you are less afraid of death. So I think it's not that we fear death. I think it's that we fear not living the life that we want. And I think the easiest way to get out of that, it's not easy, is just to start living the life that you want now, not putting it off. And that's, I'm guilty of that too. Everyone's guilty of that. We just put off our lives. I don't know if that was helpful. I feel like everything I say now is just trite. It just feels so obvious to me. Um, Thoughts on the singularity? I mean, I've said it before. Singularity is just religion for nerds. It may happen. It may not. I don't think it will. I think it's very hard to extrapolate non-linearly from where we are, um, and I don't think it's going to save you in any way. I think it's one of those traps. Like, here's something counterintuitive. I think hope is kind of a trap. If you remember the old Pandora's box story, Pandora in Greek mythology, she opens this box, and there's all these horrible things in the box that come out of the box: war, pestilence, death, famine, etc. And she looses all these evils on the world. And then at the bottom is hope, and that's supposed to make us feel good. Like, oh, okay, don't worry, there's hope. Well, that might actually be the biggest problem, because hope is you basically thinking things are going to be better tomorrow, and so not really embracing what you have today. And if you're in a very difficult situation, maybe you need hope. But I think in general, it's bad to live a life full of hope because it's throwing today away. So I don't know how that question came up, but on the hope issue, I don't think hope is necessarily a good thing. It's too much living in the future. What comes after democracy? Well, we're now living a real democracy. America used to be entirely a republic, but now, thanks to the internet, crowdfunding, social media, we're getting closer to a real democracy. And populism is just when what we call a democracy when we don't like the outcomes. And you can see there are populist outbreaks across parts of Europe, Italy, Brazil, the U.S. have had populist outbreaks. But I don't think these are going away. I think these are going to always be around from now on. I think it's the elites, the overeducated, the wealthy people who should be a little worried, because the hierarchies, the institutions that allowed elites to keep power in most countries are breaking down. Universities, their influence is breaking down. Media, its influence is breaking down. So I think that we are headed more toward a direct democracy, and that could go either way. That could go well, or that could end poorly. I'm not entirely sure. You know, the argument against is mob rule, tyranny of the majority. The argument for is it just more accurately represents the majority of the people. Not necessarily good for people who used to be in charge, though. Do you have to sleep 8 hours a night? Well, I have young children, so for me, it's not even an option, as I'm sure all of those you with kids know. Yeah, I'm very excited to talk to Nassim Taleb. I think he's one of the greatest living natural philosophers. Someone who essentially practices science for the sheer love of it across many domains, as opposed to as a job or institutionally. And I think he's made several original contributions. So I'm really excited to talk to Nassim Taleb on Thursday. Do you have heroes? If so, who? Um, Not really. I think it's better just to go idea by idea, person by person, than to have heroes. Actually, part of the reason why I'm doing less Twitter and less Periscope is because there's sort of this guru personality that I seem to be developing, and you're all feeding it, and I enjoy it, and it's good for my ego, but it's not good for me long term because it means that I can't be as free in what I think and say. It means that I can't change as much, and it means that I kind of build this self image that can then be torn down, which can be a source of unhappiness later. And I don't want that. I don't want to have a strong sense of self. So the whole guru worship thing is also kind of keeping me a little bit off Twitter. And I fed it. I admit I'm guilty. I got wrapped up in it. It was a high, and I just went with it. Do I wish I were anonymous? Yeah, some days I do. It would be nice to turn it on and off. I actually wish I had an anonymous Twitter account, but I just don't want to start from scratch and build up a new Twitter account. And I also don't trust Twitter to keep my identity private. I feel like somebody there would out me. But the anonymous accounts on Twitter, they're the most extreme. They're the biggest trolls and the nastiest people, but they're also the ones who can tell the most truth, the ones who can most freely express themselves, because social media is so open that it's all signaling. Everyone's just signaling and showing off and projecting their idealized image self. My anonymous Twitter account would be a lot more honest, a lot more extreme, a lot more controversial. Yeah, I'm not a Muse chimp. God, I wish I was. I miss that guy or gal. A Muse chimp was probably my favorite Twitter account and is gone. Whoever that person is, hats off. Am I still into crypto? Yes, but in the long term sense, it was more interesting to me before it was so mainstream. Now that it's really mainstream, it's less interesting to me just because I like to be out on the edge. I don't like to be in the middle of things. So I'm actually slowing down crypto investing. I park it with a couple of funds, and I'm probably just going to take a very passive, hands-off mode for quite a while. Yeah, I agree. Anonymity is key to free expression. It is important. Sorry if I missed your questions earlier. I can't read everything and talk at the same time. Oh, someone said I have controversial opinions. Of course, I have 80% of my opinions are controversial and I don't get them out. I have to be careful what one says on Twitter. How do you start living the life you want when you don't have enough money? Um, there's this other guy on Twitter, Liad Chabot. He had a great tweet where he said, "Not wanting something is as good as having it." So, except for maybe one thing that you're working on at a time, I would suggest that for everything else, you should cultivate not wanting it. Indifference is actually the ultimate superpower. If you want to win a negotiation, you just have to care less than the other person. If you want the upper hand in a relationship, you just have to care less than the other person. Weirdly enough, it even works in business opportunities. The less you kind of genuinely want them, the more they're offered to you, assuming you have a certain level of skill set. Um, I'm not saying be apathetic, but I'm saying that you kind of have to be quantumous. You have to be good with the outcome either way. You still do your best job. You still put in the effort because that's who you are. But you don't get attached to the outcome. And this is wisdom that's as old as the hill. This goes back to the Bhagavad Gita. But yeah, I think detachment is good because detachment is necessary for peace, and peace is necessary for happiness. So even though we're taught and educated by society to be passionate and not detached, um, I think it's okay to be passionate about one thing at a time, but you can't be passionate about too many things, especially things you can't control. If you're passionate about things outside of your control, like politics, you're going to be miserable. I'm drinking tea. Can everyone still hear audio? Someone said they can't hear audio. Can we just get an audio check? Can you guys hear me? Okay, thank you. Okay, got the audio. Thank you. Just two people said they couldn't hear audio. Rene Girard. Girardian's theory on mimesis is one that Peter Thiel is famous for having mentioned. Um, Girard was a polymath who basically came up with this theory that most of our desires, it's basically a three-part theory. Part one is that most of our desires are mimetic, they're copied from other people. So we end up in competition with each other, fighting over a small set of things that are just copied from each other, and we aren't following our true, intrinsic, genuine desires. Uh, the second part of his theory is that people basically, because they're fighting over this stuff, the societies, the way that they settle these internal conflicts is by creating a scapegoat, and by essentially killing the scapegoat, they basically achieve harmony within their group again. And then the third part of his theory is that Christianity. This is where it takes a little bit of a turn. That Christianity is a very rare institution in that it defends against scapegoating and says the person who was scapegoated in Christianity's case, Jesus, is actually the one who's correct. And I'm way oversimplifying it. I think it's worth reading Girard's mimetic theory and understanding it. You don't need to read all of his books. Some of them are very long and can be painful. But you can find summary papers. It's a model that's worth knowing about. I think the most important part of the model that's worth tracking is just that the part about mimesis, that our desires are copied from other people or socially copied, and I think that's an important one, and that feeds into Peter Thiel's whole concept of don't compete, because when you're competing with people, a lot of times really you're competing with them over things that you copied from them and desires you copied from them. And this is very common in business. Like you'll be running your company, and then a competitor shows up, and then you get obsessed with a competitor. And then you start basically chasing after the competitor, and you lose track of the fact that 99% of people out there are not your customers and don't even know what you're doing, and you should be going and getting more customers, not focusing on your competitor. And very often you will end up basically just both following the same strategy, jumping back and forth in front of each other, when the correct answer was to follow a completely different strategy. So I think that's the interesting practical takeaway from mimetic theory. And I think another piece that's important is don't scapegoat people. Don't find a singular. By the way, so someone told me that the person who's saying audio is not working is trolling me, which is good. Thank you. So if somebody starts that again, if you troll me again, I'll just block you.